Hello, it is Fabian Williams, marriage and family therapist with lifeanew.com, lifeanu.com, and today I'm talking about grief. Uh, Mainly because none of us are going to get out of this life alive, and we're all going to deal with it. We're all going to deal with grief at some point, and since our region is now reeling from a couple very deaths that occurred that are very close, that hit close to home. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how sneaky grief is, how grief will sneak in the form of anger, grief sneak in the form of isolation, depression, sadness, frustration, just all of those emotions that go along with it. So, talking about grief, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says it best. She defines, of course, the intense emotional response to a loss, right? But she also added this definition: an emotional, spiritual, psychological journey to healing. And let's utilize that definition as we go forward with grief and say, first thing, where you see grief, offer grace. If you're feeling like you are grieving, give yourself the grace to know that this can take all different forms. There's no box to put your grief in. It's not going to look like so and so's does. You might not react the way that you feel like you should have reacted, living that shouldy life again. It is there are so many things tied to it. She also goes on, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, that is, with David Kessler, goes on to talk about denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And acceptance is where we can begin to get to the place of healing. So all of that, and it's not a cyclical. We want it to be a system of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you could be all over the place. You could be in denial today, anger tomorrow, back to denial, back to bargaining, up to depression. Just you go all over the place. So there's no set way to grieve. That's the other thing. So give grace in that. Give the space and grace to grieve well. So some things that you can do in the place of grief. Oh, I should have added after acceptance between David Kessler and Granger, Westberg, and there's another one, Nehemiah. The edit making meaning. And making meaning is vital to accepting the death and going forward into your healing. So making meaning of that person's, the loss that you experienced, as well as adding something that you can look to that creates space, that creates happiness, joy, memories, positive memories, those things that make you feel like that person is still with you, but you can still go on. So that's important. Let me give some things that I love for you to try to implement in order to process your grief a little better. You are not going to get over it. This is something that somebody told us at our granddaughter's funeral. This is something that never goes away, but it gets easier to wake up in the morning. And that is a very, I don't know, not it wasn't profound by any means. It wasn't biblical. It wasn't anything like that. Well, maybe it was. And, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So maybe it was a little biblical, but it was the one that stuck. It was that mental Velcro, for me at least, that allowed me to let the process take its course. So one, I say, as your list girl, get a therapist. It is such a vital time in your life, and it is something that you cannot control. Like we talked about earlier, you can't put a box around how you're going to grieve. Find someone to talk to. If that is a very close friend, if it is, I say a therapist because sometimes friends get tired of hearing it, or you feel like they're tired of hearing it, or they don't have time. They don't have time to pick up the phone and listen to you cry. They don't have time to help you walk through. They don't have time to laugh with. They want to. They do. They love you and they want to. But remember, where your life stopped, we're going to say stopped with air quotes, because we don't want to say that is literal, but figuratively, your life stopped. Theirs has to go on. They have to go back to work. They have to begin to function again. So a therapist is vital, allowing you to talk. So that talking process is so important. That verbal processing of what you've been through, that verbal processing of what you miss, what you loved, what you long for, all of those things, even the ones that don't seem to make sense, getting it all out there is valuable to releasing your mental space. Um, Next thing is resting, getting some rest, finding your place to rest. It is difficult to rest in that season. So, sitting yourself down, even if your mind is going a mile a minute and you can't sleep, rest. Give your body rest. This is taking a toll. Mental stress and anguish takes a toll on your whole physical body. Grace, again, I say that word because giving yourself grace to know that this could come in any form. It could be ugly, it could be pretty, it could be silent, it could be just so opposite your regular, your normal character. Um, and then getting up and doing something, being sure to get up and do the routine stuff that you did, getting up, washing up, brushing your teeth, eating, drinking, all of those things that we shut off when we shut down. Making sure that you get back into that routine. There are people there, let them help you, but don't allow them to do everything, because if you allow them to do everything, you will sit and just wither away, for lack of a better word. A lot of times people talk about dying of a broken heart. You see a spouse die, and then very soon after, their the significant other passes away because they died of a broken heart. They sat and did nothing, and they literally withered away and literally died of a broken heart. So getting up and doing something with the time that you have, getting up, going to, if you can get back to work, but getting back to work, all of those things, and don't do it unnaturally. If you're getting to work and you're breaking down every other minute, you probably do need some more time to grieve. Then I go to making meaning. So that making meaning being that last thing on that previous list. Making meaning can look like anything. It can look like a picture. It can look like a piece of art, a quilt, a photo album, a video, creating a charity, creating a blog, creating something that pays it forward for the loss of that individual. Those are things that give us back our purpose when we feel purposeless, when we feel like life is over as we know it. This is a dangerous time for suicide because you just feel like I'm lost without this person. So I want to leave the 988 suicide hotline as well as the Resolve counseling number and just the Christian Counselors Collaborative. I always talk about them, and there are numerous other facilities that will provide counseling in those major difficult times. So keep a tribe around you that can keep tabs on how you are, how you're presenting. You will be different, but you don't want to lose yourself. And sometimes when we lose ourselves, we don't know we're lost. So having somebody around us that can see it, that can say it, that can touch it is also very valuable. So in this time of grieving, I just pray that you grieve well. As much of an oxymoron as that sounds, I pray that you grieve well because it is so painful. I want to leave you with a few resources. One, I've named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross numerous times. Her partner, mentee, David Kessler is wonderful. Granger Westberg, Robert Nehemiah. These are people who write about grief, who talk about grief, who go into grief at length. So if you need resources, please look to them. Again, I'm Fabian Williams, marriage and family therapist with Life Anew. At lifeanew.com, if you find that you need someone to reach out to, please feel free to reach out to us or one of the other resources that I've named. Grieve well, my friend.